1 month into the season, and the Habs are not at the bottom of the standings. Who could have seen this coming? I certainly didn't. This is Hockey Inside Out. Hello and welcome to another episode of Hockey Inside Out. I'm your host, Jessica Rusnak. Joining me today, we've got Stu Cowan back with the Montreal Gazette. We have former NHLer, former Stanley Cup, well, I don't think you're a former Stanley Cup champ, you are a Stanley Cup champ, and former assistant coach with the Montreal Canadiens, Rick Green. And we have Andrew Berkshire, program director at Game Over on SDPN Sports. So I think a lot of people are a little bit surprised when you look at the standings, and the Montreal Canadiens are near the top. They are 5-2-2 after the game against the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, that was a shootout loss, but for some reason it feels like it was a win. Vegas is the top team in the league, and they were able to keep up with them. So 1 month into the season, I want to know, what's your assessment of this Montreal Canadiens team? And Stu, since we missed you last week, let's start with you.
Well, a pleasant surprise. Not only did they keep up with Vegas, they dominated that game in the second and third periods. They got off to a little bit of a slow start, bounced back. But the thing with this team, the reason why they are where they are is their 5-on-5 play. They've given up 7 goals 5-on-5 in 9 games, which is remarkable. That's the least in the NHL. They've scored 16 5-on-5. That ranks 17th. So offensively, they haven't been great 5-on-5, but defensively, they've been outstanding, and that comes down to the goaltending. I was looking at the save percentages. Sam Montembeault has a 949 save percentage 5-on-5 and 905 overall, and Jake Allen has a 937 percentage 5-on-5. So the goaltending's been outstanding. The 5-on-5, which has helped them obviously in the 5-on-5. They've had some problems penalty killing. The power play has been better. Not great. But the thing is, the 5-on-5 play, I don't think the goalies can continue those save percentages. That's eventually going to drop. And when that drops, they're going to struggle 5-on-5, and it's going to be harder to win games. But a pleasant surprise. And the biggest thing with this team, and it's been evident ever since Marty St. Louis took over, they never give up. You know, down 3-1, they don't. You remember back in the days of Dominic Ducharme, if they were down 3-1, the game was over. The guys just mailed it in. And, down 3-1, back-to-back games, fight back, win one. Overtime, lose one in a shootout. It's fun to watch because they're just a bunch of young guys that obviously like playing for their coach. They play hard and they never think they're out of a game. And the way they battle back, that will continue in the season. Even if the save percentage might drop 5-on-5, this team doesn't give up. So that's going to help them win games.
Stu, I don't know what you're talking about. Down 3-1 under Dom Ducharme, they wouldn't come back. Down 1-0 under Dom Ducharme, it felt like the game was over.
And you knew Cole Caulfield wouldn't score.
Exactly. It was brutal. So obviously, it can't all be on him, but it was an absolute mess. And it's been a totally different team under Marty St. Louis. The improvement this year is palpable. There's more talent on the team, I think. More players who are bought in. The fact that they're doing this without Kirby Dach is extremely impressive. One thing that stuck out to me so far this season, that second line was their best line for the first game in 10 minutes. And since then has struggled. I think Newhook is probably not long-term a center, and they probably know that. When Christian Dvorak gets back in the lineup, he'll probably move back to the wing, and we'll see an uptick there, I would assume. But overall, lots of big positives so far this season. Maybe the biggest of all of them, though, is the play of Caden Guhle. Last year, from the eye test, he looked phenomenal. Young rookie in minutes that he shouldn't have had to play, but the underlying numbers were pretty brutal. Whether it was playing with Savard or anyone else, things weren't going the right direction when Caden Guhle was on the ice. That's not only flipped this season, he has been unbelievably dominant in the short stretch of games that he's played. Coming back from injury, same player. He's been absolutely incredible. So I've been so impressed with him. And it seems like so far, no one on the defense has taken a step back over last year. And that's something that, over the course of the full season probably won't be true. But right now, really positive for the Montreal Canadiens.
And like Stu had mentioned, I have to give full marks to the goaltending because these guys have really allowed the team to, weather some bad spots in their game where they've given up really good scoring chances, and those guys Montembeault or Allen have been able to make those key saves at the good time. And let's face it, they're leading the league with shots against at 35. So they're playing a little bit of a run and gun style. Maybe that's tied into the stats where, they're killing a lot of penalties. But the fact of the matter is they're still giving up a lot of shots. And if the goaltending doesn't continue to perform like that, they're going to run themselves into a tough situation on the winning side. But, I talked to Martin Lapointe in the garage after the New Jersey game, and he was like, oh my goodness, it's kind of discouraging. And, they're trying to instill some positivity with the young kids. And he goes, they listen sometimes and they don't listen other times. And like everybody's saying, is the process for these kids to figure out what they need to do each and every night. And hey, listen, they've got to go on. I mean, I watched them on the attack. I watched them back checking, 5 guys involved in any kind of play all over the ice. So everybody's involved, everybody's committed. And you got to give them credit for, doing the best they can each and every shift. And what I also like is they seem to be really close group, very good chemistry with each and every guy that really care for each other, which is huge. And again, these type of ingredients that you see with a young group that they do have are all positive things that are going to, be challenged, of course, over the long season. But they do have the type of character, they do have the desire, and they want to do the very best they can, obviously, to find ways to win. And fun to watch, like we said before, and entertaining. And it's great to see that some of these kids, and Andrew mentioned the defense, Barron and Guhle. I mean, these guys, they're all over the place. They're just they're on a mission, whether it's offensively or defensively. And at such a young age, they're really involved. I mean, I look and I say, oh, there goes Guhle again. He's up leading the rush, and he's the first guy back when it comes to defending. So they have some really neat players back there that are maximizing their opportunity to contribute in such a positive way. So nothing but good things to come, in the future for this group.
Well, being in the locker room, especially after practices, excuse me, when guys are sort of hanging around, you can tell how they like each other. They like being around each other. They like hanging out together. I mean, I mentioned before, they're like a group of brothers. There's so many of them in that same age group. They just get along. And you mentioned Guhle. I mean, it's hard to believe this kid's 21 years old, on and off the ice. He plays such a mature game on the ice, and you talk to him off the ice, it's like talking to a 30-year-old. It's like a guy who's been around the league for 10 years. He's just a very smart, confident guy. And talk about his skating and overtime. You watch him in overtime, you sort of, that's when you really realize what a powerful skater he is, when he decides he's going to get the puck and take off. It's almost like Mike Matheson. People just can't catch him. He's got that really powerful straight ahead speed. And the 5-on-5 game, I remember going back to early last season, and St. Louis was talking about, he doesn't like to talk about systems or that, but the style or the concepts he wants the team to play with. And he was talking about how you can't teach it to them all in one shot. And he was talking about how you got to teach it in bits and pieces and teach them a little bit here and a little bit there. You don't want to overwhelm them. And I think what we're seeing is the combination of all this work he's been doing since he took over is slowly we're starting to see he's getting there. I don't know what percentage he's at yet. That's a question I want to ask him when they're back from this road trip. Like, how far along are you and from where you started to where you want to get this team to be as far as the concepts and how you want to play 5-on-5? But they're playing much better as a 5-on-5 group on the ice than they were previously.
And hey, 5-on-5 looks great, but how about a 20% power play? I know they don't look great still, but they're actually getting some goals there. That's a new thing.
The thing I find that impressed me is that when Martin St. Louis was named the coach, a lot of people were wondering if this move was going to come around and bite Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes in the butt. And he'd started off well. And of course, then there was excuses that it's, just the adrenaline of a new coach. But he's really been able to prove himself that it wasn't just a fluke, that he's been able to turn this team around. Now, they're just playing exciting and entertaining hockey. And that's what I think most Habs fans really wanted, was to watch a game. And as we were saying, if they're down, but in the first period, in the past, turn off the TV because we know they're not coming back. That's not the case. You don't want to turn your TV off because there's a good chance that they'll be able to come back. And I think that's been impressive, that Martin St. Louis has been able to get this message across to the younger kids and to really motivate them and get them to buy in. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done. But 1 month into the season, they are off to better expectations than most people had, like I said myself. But we know everything is not perfect with the Canadiens. So what's been something that you've noticed through this month that you're like, oh, this is concerning and they need to find a way to fix it? Rick, what do you think about that?
Well, if you look at the last few games, I mean, an area of, if you want to call it concern, is just I've mentioned other times, is prime scoring chances against, or giving up sloppy defensive play. They're much improved overall, and that comes with confidence, and that comes with discipline in their play. And I mean, I have to mention that they are being very effective defensively, because very seldom are they giving odd man rushes from the offensive zone that's allowing the defense to stay up very, very tight in the neutral zone. That takes away a lot of the offensive speed. And this is a big part of what I see the success that's happening in shutting down the opposition, is they're making it really tough for them to get through the neutral zone with speed. But overall, I wish I could say that there's something that really sticks out as a problem area. Moving forward, without taking considerations the good play of what they've had. Hopefully, injuries are not going to sneak in and haunt them like we've seen before, which obviously presents some bigger problems. But not a lot of negativity right now. I really like their mindset. I really like what they're trying to do. They're very proud. They're very, very motivated to prove a lot of people wrong that question whether or not they were able to compete. And you can see that in their play, and you can see that in the conversations and the interviews that they're in for it, and they're going to do whatever they can do to keep this thing going in a positive way.
To me, the biggest concern is you've got 9 games into the season. You've got Harvey, Pinard, Anderson, and Slavkovsky all with 0 goals. That's half of your top 6 forwards who haven't scored a goal yet, which makes it sort of remarkable to have the record that they do have. Sean Monahan's a big reason for that, with leading the team with 5 goals and scoring on the power play also. But they've got to get more offense out of their top 6, and that's really concerning, especially like Harvey Pinard. He had 16 goals in 40 games last season. They've been playing him on the number 1 line, giving him lots of opportunities. So they haven't been able to find anybody. I mean, Anderson and Harvey Pinard are the 2 guys who've been playing on that number 1 line, and both of them have 0 goals. So they've got to find somebody else who can play better with Suzuki and Caulfield and provide more offense on that. And they've got to start getting goals out of some of these top 6 guys, because you can't continue to win. You're averaging 3 goals a game. Michel Therrien used to have that line, you need to score at least 3 goals to win a game. Well, that's the minimum. And they're right on the minimum there with 3. They rank 19th in the NHL in goals for per game. So the biggest concern, it's a concern for this team like forever. They need to get more offense. But the power play, as Andrew mentioned earlier, the power play has been better, and that's helped cover up for the goals they're not getting from their top 6 forwards at 5-on-5.
Yeah, I think I agree with Rick that defense is still the biggest problem. If they've allowed the fewest 5-on-5 goals in the league so far per 60 minutes, but their expected goals at 5-on-5 are like 6th worst. In all situations, they are the worst in the league, I believe. The special teams are still not great, right? They're scoring on the power play right now, but overall, their penalty kill is giving up way more than their power play is getting. Both because they're giving up too many opportunities on the power play, and their penalty killing is just not great. It seems like they play a great half of a penalty kill, every penalty kill, and then they start running around and things get out of hand and they allow the goal against. So that's got to get tightened up a little bit. I will say, in terms of positives, the second line and the fourth line are struggling a little bit, but last year there was a big problem with Caulfield and Suzuki in that they could create offense when they were together, but defensively they were just getting torn to shreds. That's not happening this year. They're still facing the top competition, the top checkers every single night, but they've cut essentially a goal against every 60 minutes off of their performance, right? So they're big changes for Suzuki and Caulfield on the defensive side of the puck. I think they can still improve more, but as much as Raphael Harvey-Pinard isn't necessarily contributing offensively, I think the way that he plays helps them out getting the puck up the ice and into offensive situations. So there's lots of positives there. There are some guys that need to get going, but even Josh Anderson, who hasn't scored yet this year, I think by watching him play, he's playing great hockey. The puck's just not going in for him. And I think Juraj Slavkovsky, there's a lot of focus on him. I wonder if we'd be seeing the meager results if, it was Doc Newhook and Slavkovsky instead of Newhook in the middle, where he's really struggling to take the puck from the defensive zone to the offensive zone consistently. And the two of them together don't really click without a real center defensively as well. They're really getting sunk by opposing teams. So there's a lot of positives, but even the negatives, I think, are more a situation of circumstance and the fact that this is not a team that's ready to compete for a playoff spot yet. But early returns, fantastic.
Yeah, they need to cut down on the penalties for sure. I mean, they ranked 21st in penalty killing, and a lot of them are sort of lazy stick penalties. I mean, the other night, I watched Slavkovsky. I don't think I've ever seen a guy in the NHL skate around with one hand on his stick more often, and he got caught the other night just lifting his stick and catching a guy up high. Gallagher's had a couple. It's got to be driving the coaching staff crazy because they're in the box way too often, and they're chintzy penalties. They're not like roughing penalties or there's like little trips here, and some of them in the offensive zone. And I'm sure Rick is, when you were coaching, those things must just drive you nuts.
Well, I look at some of the calls and I'm just like, I don't get it. And, especially the ones touching the hands or just pushing guys and they fall down, or basically you can draw a penalty by, if you get pushed from behind and you fall, you're going to draw a penalty.
Or drop your stick. If a guy slashes your stick, just drop it.
Right. So, yeah. I'm not a big fan of what I see happening, and we can talk about it, and we have talked about it over the years about this and that, but I just find it really extreme now as far as eliminating any type of physical play. I'm all for slashing and hooking and, get rid of that stuff. No problem with that, but allow the guys a little bit of physical play for confrontation, if you will, with the opposing forwards, to push a little bit without having to worry about them falling down and them drawing a penalty, or if they do that, give it an unsportsmanlike for the guy diving, when he receives a push, which is just a real small push, and they go down like a shot. So.
St. Louis expressed his frustration after the Vegas game with the refereeing, and I can see it's just the inconsistency of NHL refereeing that is just brutal. I mean, one of those games the Canadiens had to come back from, I can't remember which, it was Columbus or the other game. Last minute of play, and there's an obvious hook on a Canadiens player on a great scoring chance, not called. The play goes down the other end of the ice, and they call it chintzy. I think it was a high sticking call on Brendan Gallagher. Like, how do you let the obvious hook on a scoring chance go and then call a sort of chintzy high? Like, it's the inconsistency, and the players must wonder what's going on. And St. Louis, after the Vegas game, talked about, and it just continues. Gary Bettman continues to say the NHL refereeing is the best refereeing in the world. I don't know what games he's watching, but it's the inconsistency. I mean, I thought one game you'll slash a stick out of a guy's hand, it's a penalty, and another game it's not. And it's the players, they must just be wondering, what is and what isn't. And the thing is, at least when they get to the playoffs, nothing will be a penalty.
Well, like goaltender interference, what is it? Every single game, you're never exactly sure. And it is disappointing that Gary Bettman decides to watch his games with a blindfold over his eyes when it comes to the refereeing and not really make a correction to it.
Well, Bettman believes the NHL is the greatest at everything, but it's... and then goalie interference and video review, it's flip a coin. It's just that the inconsistency is just brutal.
All right, moving on to rapid fire. And the first question, we've kind of touched on it earlier in the episode. What's going on with Josh Anderson? Is he just snake bitten, or do you think there's more to it, why he has not scored a goal so far this year? Andrew, you mentioned him earlier, so let's get your thoughts first.
I think that there's two issues with Josh Anderson, or not two issues, but two sides to him. Number one, he's a bit snake bitten. The way that he plays, he's getting his chances, he's getting his opportunities, he's getting shots. They're not going in right now, but also the limits to his game create the situation where he can have these stretches where he's snake bitten a lot, right? So he's not a multifaceted goal scorer like a Cole Caulfield who can rip a one-timer or stand still and wait out a goalie and just fire a shot top corner. Josh Anderson is a guy who scores off the rush for the most part, doesn't have much of a one-timer, isn't necessarily a guy who scores off of the cycle so much. He can tip in pucks once in a while, but the way that he does his goal scoring is very up and down in the NHL anyway. The opportunities to get breakaways are fleeting, right? So you get those in bunches. Tip-in goals are very random. So he has these fluctuations in his game naturally, and I think that's just what's happening right now. It's not for lack of opportunity. It's just a combination of his type of goal scoring and being a little snake bitten.
Yeah, I agree with you, Andrew, on that. You know, he's had his chances. He can't seem to finish when he does get the opportunity. But he's a kind of, I call him a straight line player. You know, you see him winding up, coming up with this great speed, and it's a straight line. He only has one thing in his mind is to beat the defenseman on the outside and crash to the net. And as far as creativity goes, I don't see him as being a real creative guy to turn something out of nothing, if you will, offensively. But a great guy that wants it, shows up every night, not getting the results. He maybe going to have to get into those dirty areas a little bit more by getting in front of the net and causing havoc. And maybe he'll take a couple off the back of his leg, or try something like that. But you got to give him E for effort. He's trying. He's not finding a way to finish. But it's tough for him. He's a kind of a dimensional player, where it said he's kind of a straight line guy, and he's going to have to maybe get into some of the dirty areas and pick up some rebounds and use his body effectively in front of the net, because he's a big guy that can cause a lot of trouble for the defending opposition.
Yeah, if he stays healthy, I'm confident he'll score 20 goals. He's proven that he's a 20-goal guy if he can stay healthy. At 21 last year in 69 games. If he had scored on half his breakaways so far this year, he'd have at least 3 or 4 goals. He's getting lots of chances. He works hard. He back checks hard. He finishes checks in the offensive zone. He does a lot of good things. The puck's just not going in the net for him right now. I looked at his stats from last season. He had 2 stretches where he went 7 games without a goal. My buddy Pat Hickey used to always like to say, if you're a 30-goal scorer, that means there's at least 52 games where you didn't score. And he's just going through a slump. He's going through it early in the season. But I think it's one of those things. He's getting so many chances, and he creates so many breakaways just because of his speed and the way he works so hard. I think once one goes in, he'll be squeezing the stick a little bit less tightly, and we'll see more. But I'm not overly concerned, because just the way he plays, and he's still working hard. There was the game the other night in Vegas. He had a really good back check where he just busted his butt coming back and saved the goal. So I'm not overly concerned. I think the goals will come for him. But you're right. I mean, he's not the kind of guy who's going to score like Cole Caulfield from sniping shots. His goals are going to come going hard to the net, getting on a 2-on-1, getting a pass, getting a breakaway. Hopefully one will go in at some point. But he had mentioned last year at the end of the season, those opportunities are the difference between a 20 and a 30 goal scorer. And he'd love to become a 30 goal scorer, but he just doesn't have the hands. But I've always been a big supporter of Josh Anderson. I think he's not fun to play against. If you're a defenseman on the opposing team and the puck's in your corner in the defensive end, you're going to get hit. It's not going to be fun to play against him. He's going to defend his teammates when needed. But the goals will come. I'd be surprised if he doesn't finish the season with 20 goals.
Well, I also want to point out that we are taping this before the game against Arizona. So maybe us discussing that he is snake bitten will take away the bad luck that he's having, and he'll get that monkey off his back and score a goal. So if he does score in the game against Arizona, it's us here at Hockey Inside Out, the reason behind it.
Yeah. And all 5,000 people in the stands can boo him.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there'll probably be a lot of Canadiens fans.
Yeah, there will be. There will be. Actually, probably be half the rink will be.
Yeah, exactly.
I covered the game there last year, and there was a lot of Canadian sweaters in the stand.
Yeah. Moving on to the next one, Slavkovsky. He has not been off to the best start of the season. Would sending him down to Laval do him any good, or will it do him more harm? Rick, what's your thoughts?
Well, I'm a little disappointed in his overall play, not to mention the points thing, which is, what you like to see happening, more for a young kid. he started off the season pretty good. He was creating stuff. Right now, I don't see him as effective as what he was earlier on, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. And again, you got a numbers game here. You have the flexibility. You could send this young man down there and let him play and get confidence and, fine tune, if you will, every part of his game by just being on the ice more than not. And, everybody's expectations are high. He's, feeling obviously the pressure of trying to produce as he looks around the league. And, that's the type of character he is. But it wouldn't hurt to get him to Laval, let him play, let him really feel good about himself and come back when he's ready to jump back in the NHL and probably be a little more effective than what he's been so far.
Yeah, I think a trip to Laval will be good for him. I also don't think the Canadiens are going to send him. I think they're determined that he's going to stay here and they're going to work with him here, and hopefully he can. But he's got to play. I mean, he missed more than half the season last year. He went a long time without playing games. He just, he can skate fast enough to play in the NHL. But I don't think his mind at this point, I don't think he can process the game quickly enough and what's happening around him. I think a lot of the mistakes you see are just, the game's just, it's happening too quick for him. Big adjustment coming from the European bigger rink to the smaller rink. He's only 19 years old. The NHL is a tough league to play in. And he's struggling out there. I mean, he's averaging 14 minutes of ice time a game. He's on the second line. He's on the second power play unit. He's got 1 assist. And there's times, especially in his own end, there was a play in Vegas where the puck came around the boards and he sort of just chopped it. It was almost like a perfect pass in front of the net to one of the Vegas players. And I think that's just a case of, it's just everything's coming at him too quick and he can't process it quickly enough. And I think going down to Laval where the game's a little bit slower might help him score a few goals, play the heck out of him, play him on the number 1 line, play him on the first power play unit, let him get some confidence and bring him back. We look what happened with Justin Barron when they did that with him last year and he came back and he was a much better player. But having said that, I don't think they will. I think the fact that he was the number 1 overall pick, Hughes and Gorton, I think want to prove they made the right decision by picking him. But he just looks, in a way, I feel like I really like Slavkovsky as a kid when you're around him. He's a really nice kid. He's fun to be around. He's got a good sense of humor. His teammates really like him, but he's struggling. And it's, the good thing about what the Canadian situation is, if you send him to Laval, it's not like you were sending him to Newfoundland in the old days. Like, he's still living in the same place. He's still doing the same things. It's not a total shock to his system. But I think a few games in Laval would do well for him.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be hurt by going to Laval, but I don't think it's a rush. I think once Dvorak comes back, I would expect that third line that's working so well might be split up. Monahan would move up the lineup because, I don't know, you can't have Monahan playing only third line minutes. I mean, I guess that is the second line right now anyway, but I would expect that with the way Brendan Gallagher and Tanner Pearson are playing, that the coaching staff might assume that they can kind of float Christian Dvorak coming back in. And then once you have Monahan up with Newhook and Slavkovsky, I would like to see what those guys look like with proper center support, because as much as we're talking about Slavkovsky, Newhook has been struggling just as much. He's got a couple of goals at the beginning of the season there, but it has not been pretty for either of them since Kirby Dach went down. So I'd like to see them playing with a guy who can actually facilitate their play on the wings a little bit better, allow them to use their speed in transition, give them a little bit of a break defensively, and then make that decision. But, it's tough. Injuries always happen, and the NHL is such a tough league. I don't think it would hurt Slavkovsky at all to spend some time in the American Hockey League.
I kind of hate the political side of hockey because he was the first overall pick. It's like, oh no, we can't do that, or it's seen as a failure, where it's like, if it takes him longer to develop, then who cares? That is that automatic pressure because he was the highest draft pick of his year. So hopefully they make the right decision and it will help his play going forward. Now, the Canadiens are in a unique situation this season. They've got 3 goaltenders, but you got Jake Allen and Samuel Montembeault pretty much taking the brunt of the games. I think no surprise for many people. Both of them have been performing well. Do you think that these 2 goaltenders can continue their strong performances throughout the season?
Well, I think everybody's hoping so, because as we've seen, as they go, the team goes, and when they're making it happen, they're giving their guys great opportunity to have some success in the win column, and they've handled themselves very, very well. And both of them complement each other, I guess, on and off the ice. They have good feelings for each other, and they want to do well. So I think everybody's hoping that these guys will continue to perform, the way they have been as of late, and give the team a chance to win.
I don't think we can expect Jake Allen to rock a 930 the whole season. 930 save percentage is pretty impressive. That's not far below what Carey Price did when he won the Hart Trophy. So I would expect both of them to end up around where Sam Montembeault's save percentage is right now, like a 905 to 908 kind of thing. That would still be an improvement over last year, coming partially from improved defense. Jake Allen always seems to start the season off really, really well and then fade as time goes on, especially if he's leaned on too much. I'd like to see Caden Primo get another couple games here, see what he can do, because despite his save percentage looking pretty rough, I thought he was a big reason why they were held in that game that he played. So we'll see how it goes. And I don't think that there's a bad option right now for the Canadiens in goal, but that might not hold the whole year.
No, I wrote a column a few weeks ago, saying that they should just have a goalie tandem. Neither of these guys are number one goalies, but they're both solid goalies. And we've seen with Jake Allen, the more he plays, if you play him a long stretch of game, his game suffers a bit. He gets hurt. I would almost, if I was the Canadiens, I would almost just say they're going to split the games. Allen plays one game, Montembeault plays the next, and just do it like that. They'll know ahead of time what games they're going to play, what games they're not going to play. And they both finished the season playing 41 games or 41 games. I think that's the way I would go. I think it's just two guys. You explained it to them. They get along really well. They like each other. I know Montembeault, it's a contract year for him. This is a big year for him. But from what we've seen, I don't think either of them are number one goalies. In the NHL today, like the days of having a goalie like, Carey Price playing 65 games or Marty Brodeur playing, 72 games or whatever he used to play, they're gone. It's just too much of a grind. The game is too fast. There's too many shots coming. Goalies can't handle it. So I think the Canes are in a decent situation where salary cap wise, these two guys combined cost half of what Carey Price used to cost. But just rotate them. Just let them play. If one guy gets on a hot streak and gets a shutout, maybe you give him the net again the next game. But I think that way they both, the three goalie situation can't last. Like they really can't. I mean, the goalies have talked about it. It doesn't work in practice. There's only two nets. You have one guy on the side. And the Canes do have two rinks. They can bring the other goalie over to the other rink. But to me, they seem to be afraid that they're going to lose Primo on waivers. But I wonder, he's got a one-way contract, and next year he's going to make $1.1 million. You're going to be paying a guy to $1.1 million to play in Laval. I think we've seen enough of Caden Primo, at least I have. I don't think he's an NHL goalie. So you put him on waivers, and if somebody takes him, okay. And, they drafted a ton of goalies this year. And if somebody doesn't take him, you send him back to Laval. But the three goalie situation I don't think can continue, and I would just rotate with the other two goalies.
And I'm going to think that they want to get Primo in some games and hopefully have him perform and ideally find a way to draw some interest and make a trade for him. And they can't trade him unless he plays. So
well, can't use it's all about asset management, right? So he doesn't want to let him go for nothing. I understand that, and that's probably right. Probably right, Rick. Why did they put him in that game? Probably because they want to see if he can, if he can play well enough that they'll get something for him. But I think it's a pretty big sample size of him in the NHL right now. It's like about 20 games, and it's not pretty.
Yeah. And finally, let's just see, if you look up and down the Habs roster, do you think there is a player that could be a point-a-game player on the team this year?
Cole Caulfield. His passing game has come a long way already this season from the last couple seasons. I feel like last year he was a better passer than his assist numbers indicated. What impresses me about Cole Caulfield is you look around the league right now, and there's guys leading in the goal column like Frank Vetrano scored 9 goals in 9 games, right? Obviously not going to continue. Cole Caulfield has never really had a stretch like that. He just consistently scores at about a 40 to 50 goal pace. He never has these crazy hot streaks and crazy cold streaks since Dominique Ducharme was coach. He just continually finds ways to contribute offense. If the power play continues to score at a somewhat decent clip, even middle of the road in the NHL, Cole Caulfield stands a very good chance of being a point per game player.
I mean, as of late, the performance of Suzuki and Caulfield, obviously, I don't foresee any problem for them, a point a game type guy. I mean, these guys, every time you watch them, they're getting opportunity on the ice. These are smart players. They pass the puck well. They know what's going on. They maximize whoever they're on the ice with, and they find ways to make timely passes or great shots, and great instinct players that are really, really talented offensively. And they're going to be obviously playing a lot. They're going to be given opportunity to show their stuff, and they're going to take advantage of it. And great players. I love to watch them, and I just at the end of the game I go, look, you had this chance, you made good of it. You had that chance. There's just opportunity that's going their way each and every shift, and just a real talented duo, if you will.
Yeah, Caulfield and Suzuki are the two best bets for 82 points. But wouldn't it be something if Sean Monahan stayed healthy and was a point-a-game player? I mean, I'm looking at his stats. So 2018-19, the last year he was fully healthy, really. He had 82 points in Calgary, 34 goals. He is a heck of a hockey player. The more I watch this guy, the more he does everything right. His teammates love him. He's really good at that front net presence on the power play. We've seen some of the goals. He's got quick hands on there. I was talking to him the other day, and he was telling me about how playing lacrosse helped him as a kid with eye-hand coordination and being able to roll off checks and also win faceoffs. I mean, he won 20 of the 24 faceoffs against Vegas, which is remarkable. He's winning like 60% this season. But there's a guy, it's hard not to like Sean Monahan. When you speak to him, he's a really quiet guy. His parents have talked about when he first started playing hockey, he was so shy, so painfully shy. He would pretend there was something wrong with his equipment, so his dad would come behind the bench and be there close to him. He's still a shy guy. His teammates love him. He's just a really good hockey player. A guy I really like watching play. I enjoy when you get a chance to chat with him one-on-one in the room. So that would be, what a great story that would be if he could become a point-a-game player. And then you wonder if he is on that point-a-game pace, is he still a Canadian at the trade deadline? Because he would definitely, I'm pretty sure if he's, 20 games left in the season roughly with the trade deadline, if he's at a point-a-game pace then, the Canes would get a first-round pick for him for sure. And then you wonder, well, do you leave him or do you trade him, or is you better keeping him? And that's going to be a tough decision for Kent Hughes to make.
Well, I think Kent Hughes is hoping to be in a scenario like that. That's it for us today on Hockey Inside Out. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jessica Rusnak. And let us know your thoughts. Is there a player that you think can be a point-a-game player on the Canadiens? Or if you have any questions for us, we'll be happy to answer it here on the panel. So leave it in the comment section below. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, like it, and also subscribe to the Hockey Inside Out newsletter. All you have to do is go to montrealgazette.com/newsletters. And of course, check out the Montreal Gazette to get all your information about the Montreal Canadiens and stay up to date on them. And we will see you next week here on Hockey Inside Out.